The metal walls of the Galactic Council station hummed with energy as thousands of beings from across the galaxy moved through its corridors. Ambassador Lisa Martinez walked slowly toward the main assembly hall, her black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast to the colorful robes and natural shells of the alien delegates around her. She had been representing humanity for 3 years now, and still felt like an outsider among these ancient races. The assembly hall stretched out before her like a vast amphitheater, with floating platforms arranged in concentric circles around a central speaking area. Each platform held delegates from different species, some breathing different atmospheres through specialized masks, others floating in liquid-filled chambers. Lisa took her place on the human platform. One of the smallest and newest additions to the Council High Commander Vexthal of the Zelkari Empire stood at the center podium, his tall reptilian form covered in ceremonial armor that gleamed under the artificial lights. His voice carried easily through the hall's translation systems as he began his presentation. Honored delegates, today I bring before this council a matter of galactic efficiency and progress. Vexthal announced, his words smooth and confident. The Frontier Cleansing Initiative represents our next step toward a more organized and productive galaxy. Lisa felt her stomach tighten as holographic displays appeared above the assembly, showing star maps and planetary data. She recognized several human colonies among the worlds highlighted in red. These frontier worlds, Vexthal continued, are currently occupied by species that lack the technological advancement and cultural sophistication to fully utilize their resources. The Zelkari Empire proposes a systematic relocation of these populations to more suitable worlds, while transferring control of the valuable mining and agricultural planets to races better equipped to manage them. A murmur of discussion rippled through the assembly. Lisa watched as delegates from older, more established species nodded in apparent agreement. The Zelkari had been members of the Galactic Council for over 2,000 years, and their influence was considerable. Lisa stood up on her platform and activated her speaking system. I object to this proposal, she said, her voice carrying across the hall. These worlds are not empty territories to be redistributed. They are home to millions of beings who have built their lives there over generations. Vexthal turned toward her with what might have been amusement in his reptilian features. Ambassador Martinez, surely you understand that progress sometimes requires difficult decisions. The species in question will be relocated to worlds better suited to their needs and capabilities, and who decides what our needs and capabilities are? Lisa asked, standing straighter. The human colony of New Haven has been successfully farming their world for 50 years. They have built cities, schools, hospitals. They have made it their home, a home that could produce 10 times the agricultural output under proper management, Vexthal replied dismissively. The Zelkari agricultural specialists could transform that world into a food production center capable of feeding entire star systems. Other delegates began to speak, most supporting the Zelkari proposal. The crystalline beings from the prism worlds spoke of efficiency and logical resource allocation. The gas-breathing Nebula Collective mentioned the greater good of galactic civilization. Even some of the normally neutral species seemed to favor the plan. Lisa felt increasingly isolated as she continued to argue for the rights of the colonies. These are people's homes, she repeated. They have rights to the worlds they have built their lives on. Rights, scoffed the delegate from the Hegemony Syndicate, are earned through strength and contribution to galactic society. These frontier species contribute little and consume. Much the debate continued for hours, but Lisa could see that the council was moving toward approval of the initiative. The older species viewed humanity and the other targeted races as temporary inconveniences, obstacles to more efficient use of galactic resources. As the arguments grew more heated, a deep silence suddenly fell over the assembly. All eyes turned to the highest platform, where a figure that had not spoken in decades slowly rose from a meditation posture. Keeper Mordain of the Architects was ancient even by the standards of his species, which had been building structures across the galaxy for millions of years. His crystalline body seemed to contain swirling galaxies of light, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of eons in the old tongue. "There is a phrase lost to time," Mordain said, his words echoing strangely through the translation. "Systems. Kefil mor hessen. Do not wake the sleeping guardian." The assembly waited in respectful silence as the ancient being continued. "Some species appear gentle until cornered, like the great beasts of the homeworld seas that swim peacefully, until their young are threatened. Then they become something else entirely." Vexthel looked uncomfortable but pressed forward. "With respect, Keeper Mordain, we are discussing modern resource allocation, not ancient superstitions." "Superstitions," the architect repeated slowly. "Yes, that is what the young always call the warnings of the old. But I have lived long enough to see patterns repeat across the stars." Despite the ancient being's words, the council moved toward a vote. The frontier cleansing initiative passed by a wide margin, with only a handful of species voting against it. Lisa felt her heart sink as the holographic displays updated to show timelines and logistics. Vexel smiled as he delivered the final terms. "The affected species will have 30 standard days to voluntarily relocate from the designated worlds. Any who remain after this deadline will be subject to forced relocation for their own safety and the greater good of the galaxy." As the assembly began to disperse, Lisa activated her emergency communication system and sent an encrypted message. To Earth, the message was brief but clear. "Council has approved forced relocation of New Haven and other colonies. 30 days to comply or face military action. Recommend immediate consultation with Strategic Command while waiting for Earth's response." Lisa approached Keeper Mordain's platform. The ancient architect was still there, seemingly lost in thought. "What did you mean about sleeping guardians?" she asked. Mordain's crystalline eyes focused on her with surprising intensity. "Your species is young to this council, but not young to the galaxy. There are records, fragments of data from the deep archives. Humans have been here before, long ago, in a different form, perhaps. What kind of records? Warnings, mostly. Ships that vanished after attacking human vessels. Worlds that fell silent after threatening human colonies. The pattern was always the same. They appeared weak until something they valued was threatened. Then they became something that even the greatest empires learned to fear." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying humans used to be some kind of galactic power?" I'm saying that some species have traits that only emerge under extreme pressure. Your people call it fight or flight, but there is a third option that few species possess. The willingness to fight when flight is impossible, even against overwhelming odds." As Lisa left the station to return to her ship, she carried both Mordain's warning and her own growing certainty that the Zelkari had made a terrible mistake. The message from Earth was waiting when she arrived at her quarters, and it contained exactly what she had expected. General Jake Morrison's response was simple. "We do not abandon our people. Prepare for full diplomatic protest. Military assets being positioned. Will advise further instructions within 12 hours." Lisa looked out at the stars through her viewport and thought about New Haven's farmers and families. People who had never asked for war but might soon find themselves at the center of one. She also thought about Keeper Mordain's ancient warning and wondered if the galaxy was about to rediscover something it had forgotten about humanity. The countdown to confrontation had begun. Ben Parker stood in the middle of his wheat field, watching the golden grain sway in the morning breeze of New Haven. The message from the Galactic Council had arrived 3 hours ago, and he still could not believe what he was reading. 30 days to abandon everything they had built, everything they had worked for over 2 generations. The colony's emergency assembly hall was packed when Ben arrived for the meeting he had called. Every adult on New Haven seemed to be there, farmers and teachers, mechanics and doctors, all with the same expression of disbelief and growing anger on their faces. "I know most of you have seen the evacuation order by now," Ben said as he stepped up to the simple wooden podium his grandfather had built 50 years ago. "The Galactic Council has decided that we are not worthy of our own world." A wave of angry voices rose from the crowd, but Ben raised his hand for silence. "The question before us is simple. Do we pack up and leave everything we have built, or do we stand and fight for our home? Roy Kim stood up from his seat in the front row. The former Earth military officer had come to New Haven to farm, but his combat experience made him the natural choice to lead any resistance. Ben, we all know what we want to do, but we need to be realistic about what we are facing. The Zelkari Empire has thousands of warships. We have farming equipment and hunting rifles. Dr. Helen Cruz rose next, her medical coat still stained from treating sick children at the colony clinic. We also have something they do not understand. We have a home worth fighting for. I have delivered babies in this colony, watched children grow up here, helped build a community from nothing. I will not walk away from that. The vote was unanimous. Every single colonist chose to stay and resist, knowing full well what they faced. Ben felt a mixture of pride and terror as he looked at the faces around him. These were good people, peaceful people, but they had made their choice. Roy Kim took charge of organizing the defense. We need to contact every human ship in this sector, he said as the crowd began to disperse. Merchants, freelancers, anyone who can help. We also need to start preparing defensive positions around the settlements. Meanwhile on Earth, President Maria Santos sat in the Situation Room with her military advisors, studying holographic displays of the New Haven system. The room was tense with the weight of the decision they faced. The Zelkari are not bluffing, Admiral Claire Hughes said as she updated the tactical display. Our intelligence sources confirm they are assembling a battle fleet at their forward base in the Kiffin system. At least 40 warships, including 3 heavy cruisers. General Jake Morrison leaned forward in his chair. What are our options, Admiral? Limited but not hopeless, Hughes replied. The good news is that we have been preparing for something like this. The UHS Defiance finished its shakedown cruise last month, and Captain Sam Torres reports all systems. Our operational President Santos looked up from the reports she was reading. What exactly are we looking at in terms of capabilities? The Defiance incorporates technology that the Galactic Alliance has never seen, Hughes explained. Gravity manipulation drives, quantum torpedo systems, adaptive armor plating. It is essentially a prototype for a new generation of human warships. 1 ship against 40, Morrison said grimly. Even with advanced technology, those are not good odds. 1 ship plus whatever else we can get to New Haven in time, Hughes corrected. I have been in contact with Colonial Defense Command. Colonel Lisa Wang can have 12 patrol vessels there within 2 weeks, and we are reaching out to every human ship in the sector. Santos stood and walked to the large window overlooking the city. Are we really going to war over 1 colony? With respect, Madam President, Morrison said quietly, this is not about 1 colony. If we let the Zelkari relocate New Haven, every human world becomes a target. Today it is frontier colonies, tomorrow it could be Mars or Luna. The President turned back to face her advisors. Then we make our stand at New Haven. Admiral, deploy the Defiance immediately. General, mobilize whatever forces you can spare. And get me a direct line to Ambassador Martinez back on New Haven. The colonists worked around the clock to prepare for the coming storm. Roy Kim had divided the planet's 3 main settlements into defensive zones, with weapons caches and communication centers hidden throughout the countryside. Kate Brown, the colony's chief engineer, had surprised everyone. With her ingenuity in converting farming equipment into defensive weapons, irrigation systems became projectile launchers, harvester combines were armored and equipped with cutting tools that could slice through metal, and the grain storage silos were converted into observation and communication towers. The key is to make them think twice about a ground invasion, Roy explained to his militia captains. We cannot match their firepower ship to ship, but we can make taking this planet cost them more than they are willing to pay. Dr. Cruz had converted the medical center into a field hospital, stockpiling supplies and training volunteer medics. If shooting starts, we need to be ready for casualties, she told her staff. But more than that, we need to show the galaxy that we take care of our own. Word of New Haven's defiance spread quickly through human space. Captain Rachel Stone of the merchant vessel Liberty's Dream was the first to respond. arriving with a cargo hold full of weapons and medical supplies. "Heard you folks might need some help," she said with a grin as she met with Roy Kim. "We can use all the help we can get," Roy replied. "But I have to warn you, this could get ugly fast. I have been running cargo through pirate space for 15 years, Stone said. "Ugly does not scare me. Besides, my grandmother was a colonist on Kepler Station. I know what it means to build something from nothing. More ships arrived daily. The cargo hauler Morning Star brought ammunition and spare parts. The passenger liner New Horizons evacuated non-combatants while leaving behind volunteers. Even the notorious smuggler Jake Sullivan showed up with a ship full of military-grade equipment. Figure I owe humanity a favor or two," Sullivan said when Roy asked why he was helping. "Plus, I never did like bullies as the deadline approached." New Haven had transformed from a peaceful farming colony into an armed camp. The fields were still green and beautiful, but now they were crossed with defensive trenches and dotted with weapon emplacements. Ben Parker walked through his wheat field one last time before the Zalkari arrived, running his hands through the grain his family had spent decades perfecting. Roy Kim found him there as the sun was setting. "You know, we might lose everything," Roy said quietly. "We already lost everything the moment they decided we were not worthy of our own home," Ben replied. "At least this way we go down fighting." Captain Torres and the USS Defiance arrived on the 28th day, along with Colonel Wang's patrol squadron. The sight of human military vessels in orbit brought cheers from the colonists below. Torres met with the colony leadership that evening in Ben's farmhouse. "I want you to know that Earth stands behind you," he said. "Whatever happens in the next few days, you are not alone. What are our chances?" Roy asked bluntly. Torres was quiet for a moment. "Against overwhelming odds, with outdated equipment, defending a planet against a superior force?" He smiled grimly. "Sounds like exactly the kind of fight humans specialize in." On the 29th day, long-range sensors detected the Zalkari fleet entering the outer system. 42 warships led by the massive dreadnought Eternal Glory, commanded by High Commander Vexthal himself. The final message from the Zalkari came at dawn on the 30th day. "This is High Commander Vexthal to the human colonists of New Haven. You have 1 hour to begin evacuation procedures, or we will commence forced relocation operations." Ben Parker, now serving as the colony's official spokesman, transmitted the reply that would echo across the galaxy. "This is New Haven Colony to the Zalkari fleet. We are home. Come and take us." High Commander Vexthal stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, studying the display screens that showed the New Haven system spread out before his fleet. He had expected to find a few desperate farmers and perhaps 1 or 2 human patrol ships. Instead, his sensors were detecting something that made no sense. "Commander, our scouts report 23 vessels in defensive formation around the planet," his tactical officer reported. "The signatures do not match standard human military designs." Vexthal examined the data with growing confusion. "Merchant ships, cargo haulers, even what appears to be a passenger liner. Have the humans lost their minds?" "Sir, we are also detecting some kind of orbital defense network that was not there in our previous reconnaissance," the sensor operator added. "Multiple gravity anomalies and what might be minefields." "Impossible," Vexthal said. "Our intelligence reports showed no significant military infrastructure on this world. How could they have constructed orbital defenses in 30 days?" On the bridge of the USS Defiance, Captain Torres watched the Zalkari fleet approach with grim satisfaction. The past month had been spent in frantic preparation, but humans had always been good at making the impossible work under pressure. All ships. "This is Defiance Actual," Torres broadcast on the human fleet frequency. "Remember, we are not trying to win a traditional engagement. Our job is to make them pay for every meter of space, every minute of time. Make them understand that attacking humans has consequences." The makeshift human fleet was a mixture of military vessels, armed merchants, and converted civilian ships that had no business being in a battle. But each ship was crewed by volunteers who had chosen to stand with New Haven, and Torres knew that counted for more than matching armor and weapons. Roy Kim's voice came through the communication system from the planet's surface. Defiance. This is New Haven actual. Ground defenses are ready. We have volunteers manning every position. Copy that, New Haven, Torres replied. Try to keep some of those farms intact. We are going to need something to celebrate with when this is over. The first exchange came when Captain Torres transmitted the message that would be remembered throughout human space. Zelkari Fleet, this is Captain Torres of the UHS Defiance. You have entered sovereign human space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Vexthel's response was exactly what Torres had expected. Human vessel, you are vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Stand down immediately and prepare to witness the evacuation of this world. Negative. Zelkari command? Torres replied calmly. These people are under our protection. If you want them, you will have to go through us. The battle began when Vexthel ordered his lead cruisers forward to intimidate the human defenders. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The first surprise was the gravity mines that Kate Brown had somehow constructed using modified farming equipment and quantum field generators salvaged from broken ships. When the Zelkari cruisers hit the minefield, their formations scattered as artificial gravity wells pulled ships off course and disrupted their weapon targeting systems. What in the depths are those things? Vexthel demanded as his ships struggled to regain formation before his tactical officer could answer. The human fleet attacked. The UHS Defiance led the charge, its experimental weapon systems revealing capabilities that shocked the Zelkari commanders. Quantum torpedoes that ignored shields, adaptive armor that absorbed and redistributed energy weapon hits, and maneuverability that seemed to defy physics. But the real surprise was how the civilian ships fought alongside the military vessels. Captain Stone's Liberty's Dream had been converted into a missile platform that launched salvos of improvised explosives. The passenger liner New Horizons used its large size to shield smaller ships, while its emergency escape pods deployed as automated attack drones. They are fighting like a pack of predators. The Zelkari tactical officer reported with something like admiration. No standard formations, no predictable patterns. Each ship seems to know what all the others are doing without communication on the planet's surface. The ground battle was equally surprising to the Zelkari forces. Roy Kim had trained his militia in guerrilla tactics that turned every farm building into a fortress and every irrigation ditch into a defensive position. Dr. Cruz had done something that confused the alien invaders even more. When Zelkari soldiers were wounded, she treated them alongside human casualties in her field hospital. Enemy or not, they are hurt, and I am a doctor, she explained to Roy when he questioned her actions. The broadcasts of the battle spread across galactic communication networks faster than anyone had expected. Other species watched in amazement as the human defenders fought with a combination of desperate courage and tactical innovation that seemed impossible on the Thrax homeworld. Military analysts studied the human tactics with great interest. Look how they adapt, Senior Warrior Kliktar told his commanders. Every time the Zelkari change their approach, the humans counter within minutes. They are learning and evolving in real time. The Deepwell Federation's military observers were equally impressed. They are not just fighting for territory, Admiral Glauinen noted. They are fighting as if their entire species depends on the outcome. That kind of motivation makes them dangerous opponents after 6 hours of combat. Vexthel realized that his quick police action had become a grinding battle that was costing him ships and reputation. The humans had already destroyed 3 of his cruisers and damaged a dozen more, while their own losses were surprisingly light. How are they doing this? He demanded from his bridge crew. Our ships are superior in every measurable way, sir. They appear to be using the civilian vessels as force multipliers, his tactical officer explained. The merchant ships provide supplies and repairs to military vessels during combat. The passenger ships serve as mobile medical stations. Even the cargo haulers are serving as ammunition resupply points. What Vexthel did not understand was that the humans were fighting not just as individual ships, but as a community in space. Every vessel supported every other vessel, creating a network of mutual aid that was stronger than the sum of its parts. Captain Torres demonstrated this when his ship was heavily damaged by a Zelkari assault. Instead of withdrawing, the USS Defiance was quickly surrounded by civilian ships that formed a protective shell, while engineering teams from multiple vessels worked to repair the damage. "This is insane," Vexthal muttered as he watched the tactical display. "They are repairing a warship in the middle of a battle using civilian maintenance crews." The turning point came when Kate Brown activated her masterpiece, a planetary defense grid built from interconnected farming equipment that had been secretly modified over the past month. Suddenly, the planet itself seemed to be fighting back, with grain silos launching projectiles and irrigation systems, firing coordinated barrages at any Zelkari ship that came too close. Roy Kim's militia had prepared for ground combat, but the Ogoto battle was going better than anyone had dared hope. "Defiance, this is New Haven Actual," he broadcast. "Whatever you folks are doing up there, keep it up. The Zelkari ground forces are pulling back to their landing ships." Torres smiled grimly as he surveyed the battle from his damaged bridge. "All human vessels, this is Defiance Actual. They are starting to break. Press the attack, but watch for desperation moves. Wounded predators are always the most dangerous." As news of the ongoing battle spread, something unprecedented began to happen across human space. Other colonies started declaring independence from Galactic Council oversight. Human merchant ships began forming defensive convoys. Even human diplomats in the council chambers started speaking with new confidence. Ambassador Lisa Martinez watched the battle reports from her station aboard the council complex and felt a mixture of pride and fear. The humans were proving they could fight, but she knew this level of resistance would have consequences far beyond. New Haven Keeper Mordain found her in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars. "Your people fight well," the ancient architect said quietly. "They fight because they have no choice," Lisa replied. "No one wants to leave their home." "No," Mordain said thoughtfully. "There is more to it than that. They fight as if they understand something that most species have forgotten." "What is that?" "That some things are worth dying for, but more importantly, some things are worth living for. Your people at New Haven are not just defending territory. They are defending the idea that beings have the right to make their own choices about their lives." The battle raged on through the night and across the galaxy. Other species began to take notice of the small human colony that refused to surrender. The battle for New Haven entered its third day with no clear victory in sight. High Commander Vexthal paced his bridge like a caged predator, watching his casualties mount while the human defenders seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. "Sir, we have lost 12 ships and suffered heavy damage to 18 others, his tactical officer reported grimly. "The humans have lost only 4 vessels, and they keep repairing the damaged ones faster than we can destroy them." Vexthal studied the tactical display with growing frustration. How are they maintaining such effectiveness with improvised equipment? And civilian crews? What the Zelkari commander could not understand was something that other species across the galaxy were beginning to recognize as they watched the battle unfold. The humans were not just fighting with their ships and weapons, they were fighting with something deeper. On the bridge of the USS Defiance, Captain Torres coordinated the defense with the calm efficiency of someone who had found his true calling. "Liberty's Dream, adjust your position to cover the Morning Star while they reload," he ordered. "New Horizons? We need medical teams shuttled to the damaged patrol ships." The response came immediately from Captain Stone. "Copy that, Defiance." Moving to cover position now, Dr. Cruz's voice joined the communication from the planet's surface. "Medical teams are ready for transport. We also have replacement parts for the damaged sensor arrays." This constant flow of cooperation and mutual support was something the Zelkari had never encountered in their military campaigns. Most species fought as collections of individual units, each focused on their own survival and objectives. The humans fought as a single organism with many parts. Admiral Claire Hughes arrived with the main human fleet, just as Vexthal was considering his options. The massive carrier UHS Liberty emerged from hyperspace along with 23 additional ships, transforming the tactical situation instantly. "This is Admiral Hughes to all human forces," came the broadcast that lifted spirits throughout the defensive fleet. "Earth stands with New Haven. All ships, prepare for coordinated assault pattern Alpha Vexful." Watched his strategic advantage evaporate as the human reinforcements deployed with precision that impressed even his veteran crew. How did they coordinate such a large force movement without our intelligence detecting it? The answer was another human characteristic that the Zalkari had underestimated. While the Empire relied on rigid command structures and formal communication channels, the humans used networks of personal relationships and informal cooperation that were nearly impossible to track or predict. Captain Rachel Stone had been in contact with merchant captains across 3-star systems. Admiral Hughes had reached out to retired military officers who still commanded respect in their communities. Even civilian leaders like Ben Parker had connections throughout human space that could mobilize resources faster than any government bureaucracy, but the most significant development was happening in the deeper reaches of space, where other species were making decisions that would reshape the galactic balance of power on the Thrax homeworld. Senior warrior Kliktar presented his analysis to the collective council. "The humans are demonstrating tactical innovations that could revolutionize space combat," he reported. "More importantly, they are showing a level of species unity that we have not seen in millennia. Are you recommending that we intervene?" asked the Prime Warrior. "I am recommending that we choose our allies carefully," Kliktar replied. "The Zalkari have been expanding their territory for decades, always claiming they represent order and civilization. But what we are seeing at New Haven suggests that there might be a better model for galactic society." Similar discussions were taking place across the galaxy. The Deepwell Federation's Admiralty watched the human tactics and saw applications for their own defensive strategies. The crystalline beings of the Prism worlds noted how human cooperation seemed to amplify individual capabilities. Even some Zalkari commanders began to question their mission. Captain Drakmar of the heavy cruiser Domination found himself impressed by the human medical teams who treated captured Zalkari soldiers with the same care they gave their own wounded. "They could have let our people die," he confided to his first officer. "Instead, their doctors work around the clock to save everyone they can. What kind of enemy does that?" Dr. Cruz had become something of a legend during the battle, not just among humans, but throughout the galactic community watching the broadcasts. Her field hospital treated over 300 casualties from both sides, and her research team had developed countermeasures for several Zalkari bioweapons. "Commander, the human medical officer has transmitted the formula for treating Calith nerve gas exposure," a Zalkari medical officer reported to Vexthal. "She is sharing it freely with all forces in the system." Vexthal stared at the report in confusion. "She is giving away military medical secrets to her enemies?" "Sir, her message says that healing knowledge should never be used as a weapon against anyone." This act of medical mercy during active combat confused many military observers, but it had an unexpected effect on morale throughout the Zalkari fleet. Soldiers who knew they would receive proper medical care if wounded fought differently than those who expected to be abandoned if injured. The battle itself continued to evolve as both sides adapted to new tactics. The humans revealed more technological surprises, including drone swarms that seemed to think and coordinate like living creatures, and energy shields that somehow grew stronger when attacked. Kate Brown had outdone herself with innovations that turned farming technology into military assets. Her latest creation was a network of communication satellites built from repurposed weather monitoring equipment that gave the human fleet real-time coordination capabilities that rivaled military command systems. "The humans are fighting with equipment that should not work," Vexthal's chief engineer reported. "Their technology seems to be held together by determination and improvisation, but it is somehow more effective than our standardized military systems." Roy Kim's militia had evolved from desperate farmers into an effective fighting force that used knowledge of their own land to maximum advantage. Every hill, every stream, Every building had become part of an integrated defense system that made the planet itself seem hostile to invaders. But perhaps the most important development was happening in the hearts and minds of beings across the galaxy who were watching the humans fight. The idea that a small colony could stand against a galactic empire and not only survive but inspire others was spreading faster than any government could control on dozens of worlds. Other species began to ask questions about their own relationship with the Galactic Council and the great empires that dominated galactic politics. If humans could successfully resist the Zalkari Empire, what other assumptions about power and authority might be worth challenging? Ambassador Lisa Martinez found herself at the center of a diplomatic revolution as representatives from smaller species began approaching her with quiet questions about human intentions and capabilities. "We have watched your people fight for 3 days," said the delegate from the Coral Gardens Collective. "You show us that it is possible to stand against the great powers and survive. We do not seek to replace one empire with another," Lisa replied carefully. "We simply want the right to make our own choices about our own lives." "That is exactly what makes you dangerous to those who profit from the current system," observed Keeper Mordain during one of their conversations. "Your people are proving that strength does not always come from size or technology. Sometimes it comes from knowing what you are willing to fight for." As the fourth day of battle dawned, Vexthel faced a decision that would determine not just the fate of New Haven, but the future of Zalkari expansion throughout the galaxy. His casualties were mounting, his political support was wavering, and the humans showed no signs of surrendering, but the High Commander had one final option: a weapon. That would end the battle decisively and send a message to anyone else who might consider resisting the Empire. The planet-killer weapon Annihilation was en route from the core worlds, carrying enough firepower to sterilize every living thing on New Haven. The order to deploy such a weapon would cross lines that even some of his own allies found unacceptable. But Vexthel was running out of choices. The humans had turned what should have been a simple relocation into a galactic crisis that threatened everything the Zalkari Empire represented. The countdown to ultimate confrontation had begun. The news of the approaching planet-killer weapon spread through both fleets like wildfire. High Commander Vexthel had made the decision that would either end the conflict decisively or transform it into something far more dangerous. Captain Torres studied the sensor readings from his damaged bridge aboard the UHS Defiance. The weapon ship Annihilation was still 6 hours out, but its signature was unmistakable. "All human vessels, this is Defiance Actual. Enemy superweapon inbound. All non-essential personnel should evacuate to minimum safe distance." The response surprised him. Not a single ship began to withdraw. "Defiance, this is Liberty's dream," came Captain Stone's voice over the communication system. "We did not come this far to run away now. This is Morning Star," added another captain. "Our families are down on that planet. We stand with them on New Haven's surface." Ben Parker gathered the colony leadership in the Emergency Command Center that Roy Kim had built in the basement of the community center. "Folks, we need to talk about what comes next. That weapon up there can wipe out everything we have built in a matter of minutes." Dr. Cruz looked up from the medical reports she was reviewing. "How long do we have?" 6 hours, maybe less," Roy Kim replied grimly. "The question is whether we try to evacuate people to the caves in the northern mountains or make our final stand here in the settlements." "No evacuation," Ben said firmly. "If we scatter now, we lose everything that makes us a community. We stay together, whatever happens." Kate Brown had been working frantically on one last defensive measure, something she had kept secret even from the other colony leaders. "I might have something that could help," she said quietly. "It is dangerous and probably illegal by every treaty in the galaxy, but it might give us a chance." Meanwhile, the news of the incoming planet killer had reached the Galactic Council station, where Ambassador Lisa Martinez watched the political landscape shift in real time. Species that had remained neutral throughout the conflict were now openly condemning the Zalkari decision to deploy weapons of mass destruction. "This crosses every line of civilized warfare," declared the representative from the crystalline assembly. The Zalkari claim to represent order, but this is nothing more than genocide. Even some of the Zalkari Empire's traditional allies began to distance themselves from Vexthal's decision. The Hegemony Syndicate's delegates stood before the Emergency Council session and announced, "The Syndicate cannot support the use of planet-killing weapons against civilian populations. Such actions violate the fundamental principles of galactic civilization." Keeper Mordain rose from his meditation platform for the second time in decades. The young commander makes the same mistake that has destroyed empires throughout history. He believes that greater violence will solve the problems created by insufficient violence. He does not understand that some fights, once begun, can only end in transformation, but the most significant response came from an unexpected source. Senior warrior Kliktar of the Thrax Collective transmitted a message directly to the human fleet. "Human defenders, the Thrax Collective formally recognizes your right to defend your territory. We are dispatching military assets to assist in your defense." Admiral Hughes received the message aboard the UHS Liberty with a mixture of relief and concern. "Captain Torres, are you seeing this? The Thrax are sending ships." "I see it, Admiral," Torres replied from the Defiance. "How many ships are we talking about?" "Sensors show 67 Thrax vessels dropping out of hyperspace," came the report from the fleet's tactical coordinator. "They are taking formation alongside our defensive perimeter." The arrival of the Thrax fleet changed everything. Suddenly, the human defense was no longer a desperate last stand by a single species, but the beginning of a new alliance that other species were eager to join. The Deepwell Federation arrived next, their aquatic crews bringing unique capabilities that complemented human tactics. The Coral Gardens Collective sent their bioships, living vessels that could regenerate damage faster than conventional repairs. Even some Zalkari commanders began to defect. Captain Drakmor of the Heavy Cruiser Domination transmitted a message to his own fleet: "I will not participate in genocide. Any ship that wishes to withdraw from this action may join me in protective custody with the human fleet." Vexthal watched his strategic position collapse as his own forces began to fragment. "Order all ships to hold position," he commanded. "Any vessel that attempts to defect will be destroyed," but it was too late. The moral authority that had sustained Zalkari expansion for centuries was crumbling as the galaxy watched the Empire prepare to commit mass murder to maintain its dominance. Captain Torres made the decision that would be remembered as the turning point of the conflict. As the planet killer weapon approached, he transmitted a message to the entire galaxy. "This is Captain Sam Torres of the United Human Ship Defiance. We are about to attempt to stop a weapon of mass destruction from being used against innocent civilians. If we fail, remember that we tried. If we succeed, remember that some things are worth fighting for." The UES Defiance broke formation and accelerated directly toward the incoming annihilation. Torres had made the calculation that his ship's experimental armor and shields might survive long enough to ram the planet killer and prevent its firing. "Captain, the other ships are following us," his tactical officer reported with amazement. Torres looked at his display screens and saw the entire human fleet moving in formation behind him, along with their new Thrax and Deepwell allies. "All ships, this is Defiance Actual. You do not need to follow me on this run." "Negative, Defiance," came Captain Stone's voice. "We finish this together or not at all." The final approach lasted only minutes, but those minutes contained a lifetime of heroism and sacrifice. The combined fleet absorbed devastating fire from the planet killer's escort vessels, losing ships and crews who died knowing they were preventing something unthinkable. Torres felt his ship shudder under massive impacts as they closed the final distance. "All hands prepare for collision." "It has been an honor serving with you." The explosion when the UHS Defiance rammed the Annihilation lit up the entire star system. The planet killer was destroyed, but so was Torres and his entire crew, along with 12 other ships that had followed him into the suicidal attack on New Haven's surface. The colonists watched the flash of light that marked the sacrifice of their defenders. Dr. Cruz was the first to speak. "They saved us, those brave People saved us all. The destruction of the planet killer broke the will of the remaining Zelkari forces. Without their ultimate weapon, facing a growing coalition of species that opposed their methods, High Commander Vexthal finally ordered his fleet to withdraw, but the real victory was not military. In the days that followed, the Galactic Council underwent its first major reorganization in 2,000 years. The Frontier Cleansing Initiative was not only cancelled but declared a crime. Against Galactic Civilization Ambassador Lisa Martinez found herself at the center of negotiations that would reshape how the galaxy governed itself. The new Galactic Compact recognized the rights of all species to their chosen territories and established principles of mutual aid and defense. Ben Parker returned to his wheat fields. But now human patrol ships moved openly through the system, and the galaxy understood that New Haven was under the protection of a growing alliance of free worlds. Dr. Cruz established a medical college that became famous throughout the galaxy for training healers, who would treat anyone regardless of species or politics. Her techniques for trauma treatment developed during the battle became standard practice in hospitals across dozens of worlds. Kate Brown's engineering innovations led to a revolution in defensive technology that made it possible for smaller worlds to protect themselves against larger aggressors. Her motto became famous: "The best defense is helping your neighbors defend themselves." Roy Kim continued to train militia forces, but now he was teaching tactics to delegations from across the galaxy. His methods of community-based defense were studied by military academies everywhere. The memorial service for Captain Torres and the other fallen was attended by representatives from 47 species. Keeper Mordain spoke at the ceremony, finally revealing the complete ancient warning: do not trifle with humans, for they are the gardeners of the void, gentle with seeds, terrible to those who would burn the harvest. Admiral Hughes took command of the new multi-species defense force, an organization that grew from the alliance forged in the battle for New Haven, the principles of mutual aid and cooperative defense that had saved the colony became the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. High Commander Vexthal faced trial for war crimes and crimes against galactic civilization. During his testimony, he was asked why he had escalated the conflict to the point of deploying planet-killing weapons. "I thought they were weak." He said simply, "I thought that if we applied enough pressure, they would surrender like every other species we had conquered. I did not understand that there are beings in this galaxy who will choose death before dishonor." Years later, as Ben Parker walked through fields that were green and peaceful once again, he often thought about the price of freedom and the cost of standing up to bullies. The wheat grew tall and golden, watched over by ships crewed by humans and aliens who had learned to work together.